used to be very close with Jason Kenney, and I know you were too. Maybe you still are. And it felt to me, I mean, I disagree with him very strongly on his pandemic lockdowns. And he was very good at first, and then he collapsed and became, in my opinion, rather punitive. Or he allowed the province's enforcement to be very punitive. I think Alberta had certain arrests and prosecutions that even Ontario didn't have, especially when it came to churches. But let's put that aside. I think that Jason Kenney, it looked to me like he was keeping an eye on a bigger prize, that he wanted to be Premier of Alberta for a couple terms, and it always felt like he was keeping his federal options open. He never really went to war against Ottawa in a full-throated way, and it seemed to me, because he was thinking, well, in 8 years when I run for Prime Minister, will something I say be seen as anti-Quebec or anti-Ontario? Well, am I not suitably federalist enough? And if to be a successful Alberta Premier, you have to have a heavy dose of anti-Ottawa spirit in you. And I think it was sort of evident that Jason Kenney didn't, and that's my explanation for why. Let me show you a video of Danielle Smith just very recently, which shows she's clearly focusing on Alberta first, which Albertans love. Here she is protesting against Stephen Guilbeault and Justin Trudeau and their outrageous attempt to cap emissions from Alberta, which is code for cap oil and gas production. Just take a look at this. And I ask you, who else is doing this? Scott Moe in Saskatchewan, good ag, but Alberta is the important energy province, the more important one. And take a look at this and tell me if this isn't a strong conservative leader. Take a look at this just the other day.
Once again, Ottawa is attempting to set policies that are short-sighted and reckless. This fall, the federal government plans to table regulations that would set mandatory targets with irresponsible timeframes for upstream oil and gas and liquefied natural gas facilities. Ottawa says they're working to cut emissions, but we all know that's what they're really doing is cutting production of oil and gas. And this, by extension, will cut jobs and revenues across the country. And that should concern every Canadian. Alberta's oil and gas industry is a huge part of Canada's economy. It provides a stable energy supply for Canadians and also for people who live in countries and import our oil and gas products. It provides Canadian families with tens of thousands of direct and indirect jobs, as well as billions of dollars in federal revenues that pay for important programs, services, and infrastructure that Canadians rely on. All of this will be jeopardized and lost if this ideological, irresponsible, and frankly, terrible policy moves forward. I
mean, you got to love that if you're a right winger, if you're an Alberta firster, if you're skeptical of Trudeau. And I don't think Jason Kenney would have been as bold, because he would be thinking, how does this look when I run for Fed?
You know what? And I don't know for a fact that he had federal ambitions beyond the Alberta premiership, but he didn't go after them hard enough in Ottawa. And I wrote several times during the run up to the plebiscite on whether he should be kicked out or not, that had he simply been harder on the feds, he would have been forgiven for some of the pandemic stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe not the churches, maybe not some of the charges and arrests, but certainly for any of the restrictions that most ordinary people felt, he probably would have gotten away with that. He would have gotten away with the Sky Palace dinner, some of the things that really did him in. If he had simply gone after Ottawa enough, and she goes after Ottawa all the time. About 10 days before that announcement, she sent Trudeau a letter saying, you got 4 weeks to make amendments to the Impact Assessment Act, which is we know as the No More Pipelines Act. You have 4 weeks to make amendments, or we're taking you to court because we know this is unconstitutional and we're not putting up with it. Yeah. So, do you think there's another? Is Nenshi going to do that?
Yeah.
No. Had Nenshi like people used to talk about how close Rachel Notley was with Justin Trudeau. Had Nenshi is way closer to Justin Trudeau on a personal level. And then she may have made the odd announcement about his support for oil and gas, and he wants to help settle, reduce some of the caps for net zero power transmission and things. Yeah, whatever. I don't buy that. I do buy it from Smith. Yeah. She started with that Sovereignty Act, which unfortunately for her and moderate Calgary voters in particular, has soured them a bit because it looked flaky. It looked because it wasn't the province couldn't just nullify federal legislation it didn't like. She ended up coming off like a little bit of a crank, so that when she says things like she just said there, they keep thinking, it's just the same woman who 2 years ago thought that they should just be able to say, we're walking away from federal legislation. You can't impose it on. No, she's got a much more practical view of things now. And they have said, we are going to resist to the maximum amount allowed under the Constitution any intrusion by Ottawa into provincial jurisdiction. And she is a leader in the country on provincial rights. Other provinces would like to be as forceful as she is, but they're not. I think that the clip you had there is very, very good. I think the one 10 days before that where she threatened to take the feds to court over the Impact Assessment Act was very good. She's done probably 4 or 5 of those this year. And I can tell you from people I know in Ottawa in the Liberal government that they don't like her because she creates headaches for them because she has legitimate points of view that stops their unconstitutional behavior. There's a Mark Holland who is, what is Mark Holland now? I think he's the federal health minister. He said the other day in advance of the Liberal caucus meeting to see whether or not to get rid of Trudeau, he said, Trudeau is the kind of guy who says ideology should come first. And we don't care whether it's municipal responsibility or provincial or federal. We're just going to do the right thing. That's very dangerous when you start doing that sort of stuff. There's a reason the Constitution has that division of powers between the feds and the provinces. And Smith is probably the strongest defender of that division in the country, and probably the best, the most knowledgeable premier in the country about that division of power.
Right. Oh, hi, it's Ezra Levant here in Toronto with an important message because we need your help. Independent journalism in Canada is under attack. Government censors, big tech deplatformers, and the dying legacy media are all working together to maintain exclusive control on the information you receive. They don't want you to hear other voices like ours, and they really don't want you to be informed and to think for yourself. That's why the work we do here at Rebel News is so important. Our on-the-ground reporting, independent news shows, and special content you won't find anywhere else. It's all designed to give you trustworthy information and alternative viewpoints so you can decide for yourself. We don't get government money, and we are not owned by some big global conglomerate. We're funded by people just like you, so please support independent journalism and help us continue our work by subscribing and becoming a Rebel News Plus member today, right here on the page. Go to rebelnewsplus.com. Members get instant access to all of our shows, invitations to exclusive events, and access to our premium content like live event footage and documentaries you won't see anywhere else. Only Rebel News Plus members can join the conversation by participating in the comments section of our new website. That way you can have your say too. More than anything, though, you'll be able to take pride in supporting real, honest journalism, and you'll help our talented team continue to do the work to push back on the establishment. We really can use your help. We need it, in fact. So thank you, and enjoy Rebel News Plus.